And so most people look at it as, oh, this is another Bitcoin version. Why should I get that one? Let me get others. But then most of our users now that we see are not into investing in crypto or trading crypto or anything like that. They just want the utility. And that's our target market. People who've never had Bitcoin before and don't care that it's Bitcoin and just care that it's something that they can use. So we're very gratified in seeing how that's growing. I have asked people, around about what is the potential for, even Craig Wright, of course, for people to actually use Bitcoin as their day-to-day money. And because, of course, we see CBDCs coming along now, and CBDCs will, of course, run on Bitcoin. But does that mean that we won't actually have a native cash token, but rather a commodity that people will buy to be able to write to the ledger and do all this stuff that you can do with Bitcoin? And then the actual cash part of it, which is the ability to buy your groceries or buy data for your phone, is that going to be a thing? So I think it is, especially because we see inflation and really the system is broken. And I just hope that Bitcoin itself can, because of its nature, being something that's regulatory compliant and all those things, that it will be allowed to exist as cash. And then as it grows into a mature commodity, then the price of it will stabilize and people will be more confident.
Bitcoin mining, Bitcoin wallet, blockchain, stablecoins, MetaNet, the evolution of money. Everybody is talking about Bitcoin today, but what exactly is it? Learn the basics from experts. Learn what Bitcoin is, how it works, and why it matters. Bitcoin 101, your ultimate guide to the fundamentals of blockchain.
Hello and welcome back to the show. Today we have Lorien Gamaroff, co-founder of Centbee, founder of Moon, and if I'm not mistaken, you're also Bitcoin ambassador to Africa. Is that right, Lorien?
Yeah, more specifically South Africa. So there are other ambassadors now that have been recently selected for other countries. I forget which.
Yeah, I believe they made Robin DeLisser one in the U.S. And alongside a couple other individuals. So it's fun to see everybody getting so involved in the community. But I guess that can start us off. You have a background working with Bitcoin in Africa. I'm curious to know how being a Bitcoin ambassador has helped you in the development of not only your own business ventures, but also in the ecosystem as well.
Yeah, well, I think that it's been a long time that I've been working with Bitcoin and involved in the space. Founded several companies over the last 12 years, all centered around Bitcoin. And I've been so active, especially because before I co-founded Centbee Wallet. I had a consulting company, an advisory company, Moon, which sort of was started to explore payments around electricity utilities and that sort of thing, because I was working in a startup, smart energy startups, smart grids and things. And so founded Moon, and then it eventually became an advisory consulting company, because one of the problems was, even though Bitcoin was so great for payments, there wasn't really any way for people to get Bitcoin and to spend it and to hold it and that sort of thing, unless you were on an exchange. And so I spent a lot of time, many years, going around the world speaking at organizations and financial corporations and NGOs and government organizations, talking about Bitcoin, places like the UN and that sort of thing, trying to explain to them that it wasn't this crypto anarchist tool. It could be regulated. It was transparent. It was all about anti-fraud and the very low cost of payments which was great for an African context because, of course, in Africa, people still pay for things, and the infrastructure isn't necessarily set out for cheaper payments, although that's sort of changing over time. But nothing beats Bitcoin. Yeah, so I spent a lot of time doing a lot of workshops, seminars, lots of lectures at universities, trying to win people over to this idea of Bitcoin and to move them away from this idea that it was censorship resistant or, unstoppable. I hate those terms, and I spent a lot of time trying to explain that it wasn't. But my voice was always a minority voice, and the cool kids were all talking about what BTC and Monero and all that have become today. So I've spent many years working at very high levels, talking about blockchain. And so when I was asked to become an ambassador, it didn't really change anything, except I could add that to my bio, because I still have the same engagements and the same relationships and so on. So I think being an ambassador adds another layer of, I guess, professionalism, especially considering Bitcoin is supposed to be a professional tool. And by the way, throughout this discussion, I'm going to say Bitcoin. I do mean BSV, of course. So that's really what it's been about, trying to educate people anyway. And the ambassadorship is a nice extra thing that I can present to show that a BSV is a professional thing. It has organizations that are trying to work with government and trying to work with business to explore what are the great potentials for this technology.
Definitely. I know it's an uphill battle most times, trying to differentiate BTC and the narratives that are so commonly associated with that, and then tell people what the truth about Bitcoin is. Some people want to hear it and some people don't. And so education is a very important thing in that aspect. So one thing that I'm really happy that you are participating in is spreading that message, even if we are the minority voice right now, because the way I see it, we won't always be that way. But you mentioned that you were helping like people in South Africa with electric and those types of things. So how does Bitcoin, in your opinion, help in underdeveloped countries? And what type of solutions so far have you helped to facilitate for people in those areas?
Yeah, so the whole idea at the time was I was working on vending systems for the smart metering systems. And we were trying to find ways to get people, Africans, to be able to buy energy on a sort of pay-as-you-go basis. We call it prepaid. And then what you would do is you would buy electricity and then you would consume it and then it would run out and then you'd have to buy some more. And the problem there is that if you live in a physical cash world, then you have to, when your lights are out and it's nighttime, there's nowhere to go and get electricity. Also, the cost of dealing with cash is always higher than digital payment systems. If you just think you have to travel somewhere, draw cash, go find a vendor, that all takes time, and also, of course, having a vendor, somebody who's actually selling electricity, they need a premises and they need security, and they all need all the things that are required, and of course that brings the cost up. And so when I stumbled onto Bitcoin in about 2010, then it just sprang out at me that this would be a great solution, and that's when we built a prototype, and that prototype sort of got quite a lot of news coverage because it was a novel way of making payments for an important utility. Also, it was in Africa, and in those days, the Bitcoin community was more unified, and that really was the message. It was about payments. It was only up until a few years ago that it stopped being about payments when BTC and all that became too expensive to use as payments. So Bitcoin, SV, Bitcoin, that was just the perfect tool, and so that's what we did. We built this prototype, and we did a live POC, and that got taken up. I was given the opportunity to talk about it at a TEDx in Switzerland, and so that was really fun and really cool to think that you can now be able to buy energy using Bitcoin from around the world. If you would like to just see more about that or hear more about that story, you can just go into YouTube and type Gamaroff TEDx. You can hear the little story about what sort of motivated me and inspired me. And so that was the idea. I wanted to use Bitcoin as payments, and of course, electricity and water, that was just the one thing. But if you've got a digital cash payment system, what's stopping you from allowing people to buy anything with it? And and then I realized that that little project was a bit ahead of its time because no one could actually use it unless they were on an exchange, and then it was complex. So that's what led me to co-found Centbee, because I realized now I needed to create a wallet. I needed to create easy ways for people to be able to top up that wallet, and then of course bundle it with as many ways that people can spend. And so that was a 5-year journey now and that's what I've been on and focused on. And to be honest, it's going really well. It's of course it's not just an African product where we started here because that's where I'm from, and but now it's really a global payment app, and slowly but surely, people who want to make cheap payments or digital payments for goods and things that they want are discovering Centbee and realizing that it's a really nice way to have a digital cash wallet, especially because they can send money to friends and family around the world, and they can buy stuff with it. And we see that now that's kind of how Centbee is being used. People are buying the things they need, things off Amazon.com or even at in-store retail, like in the US, Target, or in UK Tesco's, but also across Asia. We're big in the Philippines, and all sorts of funny countries. There's probably about 5 countries or so that we don't have any users in, and there'd be the obvious ones like North Korea. But we definitely have users in every single country, and they are realizing that it's not about Bitcoin, it's about cheap digital cash. And BSV, of course, is the only thing that provides that. So we think we're going to be tremendously successful, and we're very excited. Of course, it's a long game because first of all, there's so much noise right now. It's very hard to sort of stick your head above and get noticed if you're touting a crypto product, even though I hate the word crypto. And so most people look at it as, oh, this is another Bitcoin version. Why should I get that one? Let me get others. But then most of our users now that we see are not into investing in crypto or trading crypto or anything like that. They just want the utility. And that's our target market. People who've never had Bitcoin before and don't care that it's Bitcoin and just care that it's something that they can use. So we're very gratified in seeing how that's growing.
As I understand it too, you were one of the very first people that had this mindset of getting people to adopt Bitcoin without really realizing it. And so, was that kind of what led you into Centbee? Is just like, how do we solve the onboarding process and make that onboarding process so easy that people are using Bitcoin without even really realizing it? And it's one of the things that I actually spoke to Alex Moon about last week. And he was all like, "Well, if anybody's solving this problem right now, it's definitely Lorien Gamaroff at Centbee." And I thought that was super interesting. So I'd love to hear maybe a little bit more on your thoughts about that.
Yeah, Alex is a really great guy. Well, I've been in love with Bitcoin for more than a decade, and I just love it. And so I've never wanted to hide the fact that in Centbee you're using Bitcoin SV. We often think to ourselves, should we rather have a stable coin, or should we try our best to not reveal that behind the scenes it's BSV or Bitcoin? And I've resisted that because I love it. I love not just the fact that it's a great technology, but it's also represents something that is very important to me, which is this idea of sound money, of course. And that's an idea that if you're an early Bitcoiner, that is what was very exciting. Being able to use money that was, quote, sound. And I'm originally from Zimbabwe, and remember seeing how the currency collapsed And so that really resonated with me when I saw Bitcoin and got into this idea that, oh, there's this, this fiat currency system, and it's broken. And so I'm very passionate about trying to bring in something that doesn't thwart regulators or hide money from regulators, but can be legal and regulatory compliant, and people can know that they are using a new form of money or cash. I know that it's technically called cash, but it's still money in my mind. And so I don't want to really hide the fact that it's Bitcoin. And of course, if you have a Centbee wallet, if you tap on your balance on the home screen, you can see you'll switch to the logo. And I'm really fond of that logo, and I don't want people to get a feeling for using another kind of money and not just a stable coin, like a USD coin or something. So that's really something that's driven me. I don't know if I'll be able to do that forever. I have asked people, around about what is the potential for, even Craig Wright, of course, for people to actually use Bitcoin as their day-to-day money. And because of course we see CBDCs coming along now, and CBDCs will of course run on Bitcoin. But does that mean that we won't actually have a native cash token, but rather a commodity that people will buy to be able to write to the ledger and do all this stuff that you can do with Bitcoin? And then the actual cash part of it, which is the ability to buy your groceries or buy data for your phone, is that going to be a thing? So I think it is, especially because we see inflation and really the system is broken. And I just hope that Bitcoin itself can, because of its nature, being something that's regulatory compliant and all those things, that it will be allowed to exist as cash. And then as it grows into a mature commodity, then the price of it will stabilize, and people will be more confident to have money, for a longer time in their wallet. Now, Centbee, we try and force the user to not have Bitcoin in their wallet for very long. If they put it in there, we want them to get it out. We want that turnover. So that volatility, if you have that idea that cash is only in your wallet because you're going to spend it, then the volatility risk is a lot smaller. We certainly don't encourage people to put huge amounts of money into Centbee. And we've put artificial limits. So if you want to top up your wallet, you only can do certain amounts per day. And then of course we're always driving them to get rid of it and spend it and buy all the cool things that you can buy at the moment. And of course use it for remittance,
I was
because
gonna
that's
say,
another
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Uh, Gosh, there was a lot there. First, I guess I wanted to address. I think there's this understanding that you and I can look at the technology and see, wow, this is really great. All of the possibilities are just endless. And so, on a personal level, in my opinion, it's like I hope that the government would use Bitcoin to run CBDC currencies off of. I guess, less optimistic side of me wants to think, well, the government doesn't want to release so much control. And even though Bitcoin is regulatory compliant and is, on their side, so to speak, I still feel like there's on some level that they would probably go their own way, or try to create something that was probably not so very good just to try to retain some of that control. And so that would be the first thing that I submit to you is how you feel about that. Do you believe the government's just going to come in and say, well, it is all compliant, so there's no reason for us to try to waste all this extra money and just go with this? Or do you believe too that on some level they may be looking at it and say, well, don't want to give up any additional power if we can hold on to it in any sort of way? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, but I don't think it's true, because if there were to be, remember, Bitcoin is a neutral network. It's not, it doesn't, anything you do with it, you can have full control over it. It's like the internet, once your data packets go out into the network, it seems that it's in the wild. But of course, there are all sorts of protocols and things that make your data floating around the internet controllable. And Bitcoin is exactly the same thing. So I'm 100% convinced that CBDCs will eventually be running on Bitcoin, as well as millions of other government systems, corporate, all sorts of systems. So I've got no doubt that that's going to happen, because if you create a CBDC, you can have absolutely full control of it. You can code any rules into that system that you like, and the risk is not losing control. Just remember, Bitcoin is just like the internet. It's just a data network, and with special properties, of course. So that to me is that's going to happen. It's slowly but surely happening. There are prototypes and proofs of concept going on. So eventually that will happen. The only reason it's so slow is because, of course, all the noise in crypto and all the scams. Are these things securities? Should we regulate them? And then, of course, there are all these blockchains who are touting things like if you think about Ethereum or Cardano, even though they don't work. They're specifically going for that enterprise thing, and talking to governments and saying, hey, look, this is not scary crypto. This is just a data network. So BSV will become that data network, that I have no doubt. But the thing I wonder about, I don't have doubts, but I wonder about is, will they ever tolerate another cash that's, of course, even Bitcoin can be controlled. If governments, Centbee is an accountable institution, and we have to submit anti-money laundering reports, and we have to do counter terrorist financing stuff as well. We have to know our customers. We have to do all sorts of reporting and checking to see everything's legit, and people aren't using Centbee to commit fraud. So this is the future, is that and in fact, just the other day I saw that a reserve bank, our local reserve bank, they issued a statement saying that they don't believe banks should not bank what are called crypto asset service providers, or CASPs. And that's because if they don't bank them, then of course they are invisible, and nobody knows what's going on. So naturally, when government gets over this whole hump of unconfiscatable, uncensorable, unstoppable nonsense, they will realize that the best way to have a finger on the pulse of what's going on is to have regulated entities that have licenses and all that sort of thing. Now, I'm not a fan of all that, of course, but I realize that if we want this to succeed, we just have to give in to whatever rules they have, and hopefully they're light touch enough for us to be able to create cool apps that really do change people's lives.
Yeah, that would be, I hope everybody in the ecosystems hope is that we allow them in, but they don't try to control us so iron-fisted that we can't create really cool things. I will say that I've gone around the Centbee app quite a few times, and I know that in order to top up, you have to be KYC verified. But I've noticed that in order to purchase the gift cards, you do not need to be KYC verified. Just to test it out, I purchased some Chili's gift cards to go out to eat this weekend with my husband. Super easy process,
Right.
love it. And it's in my Apple Wallet now. So I thought that was a nice little touch, because I was like, oh, am I going to have to print this out? And you guys have really streamlined that process to make it overly simplified, where you get the text, you click on it, and then it pops up, and then you can just click add to Google Apple Wallet, and there it is. So I thought that was brilliant. But I'm curious what type of tax implications are involved, and kind of what does that back end process look like from your guys' side, where I purchase the gift card, and then what happens on your end? And then are there tax implications that people should be aware about?
Well, if you spend cash, there are no tax implications, I would say. Of course, there could be sales taxes and that sort of thing, and those are built into the price of the goods. So if you're spending it as cash, if you're just using it as cash, then that's fine. Of course, if you are trading these things, then you would have to submit your tax returns and explain if you've made profits or that sort of thing. So the issue around, well, at least the fact that you don't have to do any KYC when you shop, is that's because you are using your cash to buy things. And of course, we still double check in case we see you putting millions of dollars through buying Amazon gift cards, and it starts smelling like a little bit like fraud. But for the vast majority of our user transactions, it's as you say, you want to go out and eat, so you'll buy something. There's no problem there. Now we do have the KYC requirements around topping up and withdrawing, because that's where you're converting your fiat into BSV or your BSV back into fiat. And that is where the regulators want to see what are you doing when you go in and out of the system. That's very important for them, because that's of course where all the exchange control risks and things happen. So and also even now we're starting to see organizations like the Financial Action Task Force. I mean, they've had recommendations for years now talking about this thing called the travel rule, where if you're making payments, you're going to have to pass that your personal information to the recipient service provider, and there's going to have to be a trail, and that's typical when it comes to payments. If you make a payment online, then you're going to have your data attached to that payment, and so they're trying to just put that same kind of rule in when you do that. And we haven't gotten around to that yet because it hasn't really been enforced. But it's something that the Technical Standards Committee at the Bitcoin Association are actively working on developing standards for that. And it's inevitable that eventually all of these crypto asset service providers or these digital cash service providers are going to have to do that sort of KYC stuff. It's inevitable. And this whole idea about being anonymous and that those days are certainly numbered.
Well, I hope so. We've on the show we've spoke a lot about the fine line between privacy and anonymity, whereas everybody has the right to privacy, but not so much anonymity, because you can be held culpable if you have privacy. If you have the right to be private with your information until you've committed such crime. Excuse me. And then if you've committed such crime, then you should be liable for such crime, and it needs to be provable. Whereas with anonymity, you can't prove that. There's no culpability. So very fine line there that I think people get a little twisted and it becomes confused. But again, so I go on a Centbee, I purchase a gift card. What happens to the funds as soon as I click purchase? Am I specifically going to is the money going to like one of your retailers, or is somebody behind the computer taking the cash and then exchanging it and then sending me the exchange? How does that whole process work?
Yeah, so what happens is we link to these retail gift card networks. And so we are buying those cards automatically, of course, on your behalf. When you send the money, it comes to Centbee, and then we would ultimately sell that BSV for local currency and pay for those gift cards that we've delivered to you. So that's really how easy it is. And it's great because we spent a long time trying to get retailers to accept BSV, and of course that's a long time coming. But having it this way means that we don't need to convince Apple or any of those companies to accept BSV. It's very much like how BitPay works. In fact, if you use BitPay, BitPay receives your Bitcoin, and they will then sell it and deliver and pay for the goods with the proceeds. So that's really how simple it is. And it's great because then we can now go and integrate into those retail gift card networks, and we can fill up the wallet with a whole bunch of things, a whole long tail of things that you might want to spend on. And the retailer doesn't have to worry about the BSV, and you don't have to worry about how it gets transferred, and we can deliver you a great service.
And so if you're taking the BSV on your guys' end and then selling it for, I'm assuming, cash, and then buying the gift cards, there has to be like a tax implication on your end. Is that what part of the fee is that's kind of included in some of the larger amounts of BSV? Like, I think I was looking at buying a $500 gift card to Lowe's, and the tax or the fee on it was like $25. And I was like, well, it makes sense, to facilitate getting all of this done. Is that why? Is that how you guys are keeping that afloat? Was by charging a kind of like a small premium to facilitate that process?
Yes, although that is an extraordinary example, those fees don't really come from us. That is dependent on the actual product. So you'll find that a lot of the products, in fact, don't have any fees whatsoever. So and that's because the gift card networks themselves, the aggregators themselves, they have some kind of admin fee that they charge us. And so unfortunately, we have to pass that on to you. So that was a horrible sounding fee, and I apologize for that. But we can't, of course, we would love to bring that down to basically nothing. And you'll see that a lot of the products do have zero fees. So it's all up down to the aggregators, what kind of deals they can get from the retailers, whether they have to manage their own foreign exchange, and because if they are aggregating multiple countries, they have to make payments to those different countries, and they have to worry about the FX. So if you see a fee on something, basically that's the fee from the aggregator. But of course, we do have costs as well, because we do take that and we do trade your BSV out for cash so we can pay for this stuff. And so at the moment, we don't take any money from the gift cards. We really want people to get into it. So we're happy to make that free. But of course, then there are some instances where there are discounts on those gift cards. And then we can enjoy the benefit of the discount. And we hope that ultimately, if we can do that and maybe even sometimes pass the discounts on to the user, which we certainly are looking at right now, then we can perhaps balance that all out, where we can reduce the fees on some things, but by earning discounts on those gift cards, and then of course passing those discounts on to you. Now Centbee is a business, and so we have turnover, revenue turnover, and we have to do our own tax. So we of course are getting taxed on our revenue and our profits and all that sort of thing, and that's as per normal.
Yeah, I mean, still a $25 fee on a $500 gift card really isn't that bad when you think about the exchange and everything going on behind it. But I was curious. I was like, that's probably why that fee is so high. $500 could be a huge tax burden or what have
Mm.
you. So, I mean, it all makes sense. But speaking about the retailers, so as I understand it, you guys have you use the digital service providers who help link the retailers to Centbee. Who are those providers right now? And then I was also curious, uh, will there be new retailers that come in and offer the gift card services in the future? And if so, who might we get to look forward to seeing in the future?
Yes, absolutely. We constantly are creating new partnerships with aggregators. In fact, we're about to bring on another aggregator, because unfortunately our Amazon gift cards were removed from the catalog just not so long ago. And the reason for that is because when those retailers get wind that you are a crypto company, then they don't want to have anything to do with you. And so they basically block wallets like Centbee from providing those services. And that kills us and it kills our users, because they want to, Amazon was obviously very popular for us and now it's gone. So we are now about to bring on another aggregator, and they actually do have Amazon. So I'm very pleased to announce that that's coming soon.
Oh,
But
good.
you can constantly keep looking. We're going to be making sure that that catalog for every single country in the world is as rich as possible, so that you can really think about living with BSV as cash, and buy all the things that you want. I mean, in some countries, like in the Philippines, there's a huge catalog. You can go to 7-Eleven, you can shop fashion, you can do all sorts of things. In UAE, there's a ton of things you can do. I was at the Dubai conference and went to the Dubai Mall and went shopping there with my Centbee wallet. So that's something we are certainly are going to keep on growing. That's our mission, is to make as many spending opportunities as possible available.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to having Amazon back. That's one of my favorite places to shop. Um, but I know previously we touched on the remittance, and so I was curious about what is cross-border remittance and how is Bitcoin helping to how are you utilizing Bitcoin to help solve real world problems using the cross-border remittance? What is all of that about?
Yeah, so that's something, excuse me, I've got a bit of a frog in my throat. In fact, I think I've come down with something. Um,
No.
we've got another application that we have called Minute Money, which has been running for a while now. And the whole purpose there was to allow Africans in South Africa to move money home to Nigeria and Kenya and stuff. There's a lot of Africans from West and East and North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa that live in South Africa, come to South Africa and work because South Africa is the largest economy and the most advanced economy on the continent. And so we created a Minute Money so we could use Bitcoin to be able to facilitate remittance. And so what we do is we have partners in those countries, and when somebody in South Africa goes to a supermarket, they can hand over cash. And then what we do is we'll take that cash, convert it into Bitcoin, and send it to the country, convert it back into local currency and deposit it into bank accounts. And that's been running really well. And so that's something we wanted to have in Centbee, of course, so that you can have your Centbee wallet and you can do the same. You can go and deposit into bank accounts in Ghana and Uganda. And in fact, that's what we have now, right now, which we're just doing a pilot right now, just to make sure that all the kinks are ironed out. And we are going to be making it available to everybody. And we think that that's going to be really cool because, of course, if you are using Bitcoin as the payment rail, then you can reduce the costs quite considerably. Now, of course, there are always going to be costs because you still have to get in and out of Bitcoin, and so we can't make it, the price of Bitcoin transaction, which is so low. We still have to worry about the trading in and out on either side, plus all the compliance and all that sort of thing, and that brings up the cost, and then of course the retail integrations and so on, because we have integrated into the retailers to take cash and credit cards and that sort of thing. So that's in Centbee now, and now we hope that it's not just going to be Africans living in South Africa to be able to send money home. We think that it's going to be a tremendous opportunity for Nigerians living in the UK, or Ghanaians, living in the States, and being able to use Centbee now to send money home quickly and much more cheaply. So we're very, very excited about that, especially because obviously it's a turnover that's a profit business, or at least a revenue business. It's very hard to make revenue on just Bitcoin, and so we have this concept of a value added service in Centbee, like the gift cards, and that's where we can at least make a margin, and so we can become a sustainable business. But we think the remittance is going to be really something that it takes off, because it's all well to have Bitcoin in your wallet, and if you have the opportunity to spend on something inside Centbee, that's cool. But of course, we haven't touched everything. You can't pay your school fees, or in some countries you can't buy certain things. So if they can deposit it into bank accounts or mobile money or cash pickups, then we think that's going to be great. So we're excited about opening that up to the public in the next week or so.
Oh, fantastic. Very soon then. That's exciting. Yeah, I have a lot of Spanish family, and a lot of them send payments back to Mexico. So it would be very useful for a lot of people in my extended family as well. So that's really exciting to hear. Because most of them, they're like, oh, well, what is Bitcoin? And
Mm,
now there'd be a reason to open that conversation up with them and say, hey, this is how it works and why it's cool and yada, yada, yada. So
mm,
again, making the onboarding process much easier, because if there's a reason for me to go to my stepfather and say, hey, you can send money to your dad or your brother in Mexico, and this is how easy it is, that's
mm.
going to be game changing for him, because I think about all the fees that he pays to send money back to Mexico. The fees on a couple $100 are insane sometimes. So good
Yeah,
job.
so we won't have that available to Mexico currently, although you can still spend your Bitcoin
Ah,
in Mexico in the Centbee shop. And so the countries that we are targeting right now are basically African countries, and there's a handful of them.
well, hopefully in the future, right? That'll,
Absolutely.
well, yeah, let's see here. I know that you guys have made a lot of progress with Centbee, especially like over the last year, and I'm curious to know what your thoughts on what Centbee might look like, say, over the next couple of years. Where are you guys hoping to be? What's the vision for you at this time?
Well, the vision was pretty much set when we founded the company. Everything that Centbee is what we wanted to achieve, except for a feature that is also going to be launched and announced soon, which I don't want to talk about right now.
Oh, come
But
on.
it was basically something that has been part of the Centbee mission and vision from the very beginning. The logo might give you a hint. And so the whole idea is that we just want to make it the easiest, simplest cash wallet. We wanted to replace your physical wallet in your pocket. So that's it. That's what we're going to try and do. We want to make sure that you can anywhere in the world you can top up your wallet with cash, digital cash, and you can spend it as easily. So I think in 5 years' time, if we are successful, and I believe we will be, then Centbee will be, especially with teenagers. That's something that where we think Centbee fits. We're very fond of our youth market, teenagers and young adults, because they are obviously wanting to spend money and they don't necessarily have credit cards and bank accounts, and so Centbee is a youthful wallet, something that can eventually, hopefully, remove physical leather wallets and purses out of people's pockets and turn it into their phone, and they can have a cash wallet. Of course, people use credit cards on their phones today, but that's not cash. So we want to make that available to everyone.
One of the things that you were talking about earlier was that you don't want customers to like leave large amounts of funds or anything on the Simpy wallet. And so I guess one of my next questions for you would be, how does Simpy go to about ensuring the safety of the coins within the wallets?
Yeah, well, Centbee at the moment still is kind of old-fashioned, where you have to write down your 12-word mnemonic and your PIN, which is something we of course wish we could get rid of. We just never had time to do that. So at the moment, Centbee is like a cold wallet, except it's on your phone. We don't have access to any of your keys or anything, so that's as safe as it is, as you've kept your keys. And of course, it works for people who are a little bit more switched on and have the ability to remember to write their words down and stuff. But it's a horrible user experience. We have had many times users forget their pins, or although those aren't that bad, but forgetting their 12-word mnemonics, and that really sucks. So eventually we'll start using all those cool ideas that wallets like Handcash have already started using, like threshold signatures and all this cool stuff that Enchain and those teams are developing. And I mean, we're very confident that those sorts of tools will be as secure as you need them to be. That's really the beauty of Bitcoin and the patents that constantly are coming out of Enchain. These amazing ways of securing things and, of course, scaling things. So we're confident that eventually that space will be mature enough that all wallets will be basically using that, as well as something called SPV, which makes it a lot easier to send payments directly from one person to another. We are a small team right now, and so we just haven't had the luxury of putting in all these cool things that are coming out. We're focusing more on getting value-added services bundled into the wallet. And eventually we'll catch up with the rest of the industry, and we'll start implementing some of that cool tech.
Well,
But
I
certainly at the moment, I mean, you can't hack it unless somebody gets your 12 words and pin, and that's physically.
there's still some value in that. But yeah, there's definitely been some talks about getting rid of like mnemonic phrases and yada yada yada. So it's cool to it's I still think there's value in it to a certain extent. So as long as you keep onto your keys, it sounds like you're good, right?
At the moment, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Lorien, I know we're coming up here. We've got coming up on the hour mark, and I was curious if there was anything that perhaps we may have missed or that you would have liked to have touched on. Um, and if so, what might that have been?
Well, I think certainly you can have faith that what we are doing here, this idea of having uh, a new kind of transactional data network is it's a good idea. And the way Satoshi Nakamoto invented it, he thought of everything. And that you can have confidence in that the protocol is right and it's good, and that innovators are eventually going to come along and see it. And once the noise dies down, this whole crazy crypto world we're living in right now, eventually it will calm down and it will die down. And if you've been pursuing this idea of blockchain, and you having ideas that for things that you can do with it, I think you're going to be well prepared for a future where BSV blockchain takes over the world, and you've got the skills and you've been thinking of the ideas, and you could potentially start a company that builds awesome tools or awesome products that people can use. Again, I've got no doubt that BSV blockchain will succeed as a data network and take over the world. And I'm very happy that I've been able to spend all these years really learning it, understanding it, and figuring out ways that I can now use this. I go back quite far. When I left university in 98, and the internet was, I was doing a computer science degree, so 95 to 98. And the internet also was this kind of weird technology that students were playing around with in the labs. And I was just very lucky to be excited about computer science, and then suddenly the internet thing took over, and I was grateful. And it was a real privilege to be part of that whole wave of the internet as it developed and as it grew. And so Bitcoin to me is precisely mirrors that exact same thing. It's this data network that people have an inkling of what it's capable of. But when I was playing around in those labs, I had no idea that the world would look like it is today, where you and I are talking to each other from across the world instantly and looking at each other. And so that's the future. We don't know, but we know that this is special. And if you put effort into it, especially if you take advantage of the great resources like the BSV Academy and all that, and you brush up on it, it's not that you have to be technical, of course, but you can be in any way business minded, and try and get into this new thing. You are going to be on that wave, and it's going to be really great to see how things turn out at the end of it. So don't lose hope. BSV blockchain is where it's at, and it's going to be transformative. And I'm very grateful and glad that there are people like yourself who are as excited as I am, creating content as you do, and talking to all the people who are doing stuff so other people can watch and be inspired. So I'm thank you as well for being part of this community and being such a valuable part as well. And all the best to you.
I really
and everyone.
appreciate that, Lorien, and I appreciate you in a big way too. I think everything that you're doing, not only providing the education to the community and to world leaders and people in the just educating people and being that ambassador to different places to spread the true education of what's actually occurring. I think that's hugely important, and I can't thank you enough for doing that. But also then saying, hey, I'm going to come up with solutions on how to fix some of these problems as well. So here are some products that I think are really good for the space. So you're an invaluable part of this space as well, and I can't thank you enough for that. So, well,
Thank you very much.
yes, definitely. Well, with that being said, guys, that is going to wrap it up for us today. Go ahead and smash the like button and hit the subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bitcoin mining, Bitcoin wallet, blockchain, stablecoins, Metanet, the evolution of money. Everybody is talking about Bitcoin today, but what exactly is it? Learn the basics from experts. Learn what Bitcoin is, how it works, and why it matters. Bitcoin 101, your ultimate guide to the fundamentals of blockchain.
Thank you for watching. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment below. Share this video with a friend, and also follow us on Twitter at BritneyBits.